Good afternoon. What a day to be speaking to Adrien Fontanellaz, one of the leaders on perspectives with regards to the military. I don't know if you've just heard, but a few moments ago, the Israelis and the Americans have just struck targets in Iran. So we're living in a time of war, Adrien, and we're going to be discussing scenarios that emerge from combat. Thank you very much for being here. What is your immediate take? I know it's not easy to comment when we don't have all the information. Your immediate comment on why we are suddenly seeing combat of a nature that we thought we had put behind a few years ago, exploding in different parts of the world. We've also had, of course, conflict with Pakistan right here in the subcontinent. That was about 9 to 10 months ago. Why is this happening?
Good afternoon, and at first, thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be here. And as for your question, back in the early 2000s, we were thinking that we were living in a completed world, I mean, with respect of international law and so forth. And then, since more than a decade, everything is unraveling. I think it was a gradual process. I think it might foremost indicate that we also transitioned from a unipolar world with a single dominant global power, willing to impose a kind of respect of its international rule, and foremost with the will to do, the means and the will to do it. And this gradually changed. And of course, we are switching into different worlds with several, in the long term, equal powers, perhaps 4 or 5 real global powers. India will be one of them, obviously. And I think during this transition, we are seeing frictions. We are seeing this kind of reshuffling of the cards, and this is generating also conflicts. I'm thinking about the Russo-Ukrainian war, for example. Synindur might be. I think Synindur is not related directly to that, but otherwise, yes, we are back into a conflicted world until a new paradigm consolidate and emerge.
So Trump has said that he is not a president that wants to go to war, that he's a president for peace. That's what he says about himself, and he takes great pride in ensuring that nations that are warring, and there have been about 7 or 8 by his own admission, how he sort of brought peace to those regions. But here you're seeing, in regards to Iran, the US and Israel coming together. Now, do you believe that there is a legitimate reason here, or is this power projection to prove a point really to domestic audiences? How do you read the American sudden pivot? And he also, of course, called the Ministry there of Defense into the Ministry of War. So it's quite interesting that he sort of plays around with these nomenclatures.
I see this as a highly risky situation, frankly. It's almost like President Trump is reminding me of Vladimir Putin, in the sense as you are making coup, and you are succeeding into your military coup without entering into any protracted, damaging war. So Putin had a easy 6 days war against Georgia in 2008. He won without any trouble. And then annexation of Crimea in 2014. No bloodshed. He got it. The Donbass was a kind of disguise affair. No problem at all. So he won at each time. Intervention in Syria. He also won. It was not an expensive engagement from the Russians. It was 50 aircraft, a few thousand troops, and appearing as a new power player in the Middle East for such a low cost. And then he overstepped. And then, out of hubris, he thought he could repeat a short operations against entire Ukraine. And now both Russia, Ukraine, and Western Europe are stuck into a protracted conflict without an end and without any political solution in view to stop it. And now we see Trump in power, and I think I lost the count already of armed intervention since he began his second term, but we had against Iran last year. Okay, he got it very cleanly. I mean, just this single strike. Most of the work was done by the Israeli Air Force beforehand, and the Iranian opted for a kind of a demonstration, diplomatic retaliation with this wave of 14 short-range missiles against US base in Qatar. So it was not a retaliation to kill. It was a retaliation to demonstrate. It was signaling. And then, of course, Venezuela. Fantastic PR military operation. You kidnap a president, you bring him home. So far for him, military operations were easy, well under control, scoring a lot of PR points. And the danger this time with going against again Iran is there is no control about what the Iranian will do. They have plenty of different ways to try to retaliate.
So you think this could escalate unpredictably?
Absolutely. At least they depend on the adversary to keep reasonable and not escalate too much, because Iran has several serious options to retaliate. For example, they could target American ships in the Persian Gulf. They have, according to the Israeli, at least 1,000 long-range ballistic missiles in stock, according to what Tel Aviv published. They have also thousands of shorter-range missiles, enough to reach bases in Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and Qatar, for instance. They have also their Houthi allies, which might be activated, and the Houthi had showed enough that they were foes that shall not be underestimated during 2003 and 2004 and early 2025. And of course, there is all the militias supported by Tehran and the IRGC, the Guardians of the Revolution, which are in Iraq. So Iran has plenty options to retaliate. And
so you're saying that the Iranians might not respond traditionally. They could, but they may not. They may even engage some of these militias that they contract or they patronize in different parts of the Middle East to perhaps carry out surgical strikes against American and maybe even Israeli targets.
Yeah. Actually, last year, Iraqi militias fired drones against Israel in solidarity with Iran, and Houthis were firing a few ballistic missiles too. So they did it already last year, in a sense. So they really have several options to retaliate, or they could also activate all of them. It depends on how they will react. If they want to go to launch counter-strikes as much as they could, as fast as they could, or if they are settling for a protracted war, just trying to survive the strikes, counting on a lucky shot of their air defenses to shoot an American aircraft. Because you have to recall the Synindur affair with the Rafale, but can you imagine if the Iranian managed to shoot a F-35? It would be the same in terms of PR campaigning. So they have several options in front of them, and it is not the Americans who are controlling these options.
So this latest round of strikes on Iran are being described as preemptive strikes. Obviously, the intention is to try and bring Iran to the negotiating table so that they can open up their nuclear facilities to inspections, or even perhaps push them into demilitarizing or weaponizing, rather, their nuclear options. Are we expected to see Iran comply, or do you think the fact that it has been described as a premeditated strike is not something that the Iranians will look at and say, okay, well, maybe we need to come back to the table, but we can go ahead and do what we have to?
At this stage, I'm very skeptical because basically the long-range ballistic missiles and the nuclear threshold capability are kind of insurances from Iranian or other guardians of the revolution perspectives. So I guess they will not, my assumption is they will not renounce on them so easily. But we'll see. It is, of course, impossible to predict the dynamics. An unknown quantity is the reaction of the Iranian public, too. This is of utmost importance in such a context. But again, what is frightening is the Israeli and the Americans don't have the control of
so they
the
don't
Iranian
have
reaction.
the control over Iranian escalatory ladder, and that can be problematic. Well,
Exactly.
I want to pivot because we've just done halfway of our conversation. I want to pivot a little bit and go back 9 months to Operation Synindur, which was, of course, a military success. What are the key takeaways for you? Because here you had two nuclear powers. This is territory that no one thought anyone would enter. Two nuclear powers going at each other. What are your takeaways?
At first, but it is more on the political than military level, but it is really impressive. The entire war lasted only 4 days, so it went so fast that nobody had really the time to consider that. But it was under the nuclear threshold, so on the political level, you really need nerves of steel to let your military in charge of the escalation ladder and to do what they need to do operationally in reaction to enemy counter initiatives, because the stakes are so high.
So what you're saying is that the Indian leadership demonstrated nerves of steel by leaving all the decisions to the military.
Yeah, and you need so much trust to do some in your own institutions to do something like that, into the professionalism of your superior officers. So this is quite striking, and from my perspective, it is quite rare in our world to see such a chain of command functioning flawlessly. You know, the political level has endorsed a strict political cadre with political objectives, and then the military are free to operate within it. It was quite freely within it. So this is a major lesson I would take from this episode, and others are more linked to military affairs.
So let me ask you, one aspect of this was battle management. What do you make of India's battle management? Because before this operation was conducted, there were many debates about whether we should have integrated command or not, and many people felt that integrated command would sort of be in some ways not as efficient as what we have. But here we had a different sort of plan. What do you make of it? Did we really have integrated command? If so, how developed is it?
I would, to vulgarize this notion, I would say it would be the difference between 10 of us tasked to surround this building and control its access, without mobile phone, without anything, to be in competition with another group of 10, with WhatsApp connection between them, able to share in real-time information. So this is the sheer importance of battle management. It demultiplies the force of the individual units, systems, and so forth. And indeed, in the case of India, what Indian air defenses in particular, and the integrated air command and control system of the Indian Air Force plus the Akash Tir system of the army faced was quite a massive challenges, because it was hundreds of UAVs at the same time, supported by long-range rocket artillery fire, plus aero-ballistic missiles fired by Pakistani GF-17 jets. And the Indian battle management system, so this EACCCS, proved good enough to counter identify the threat, share the information within all the weapon system in the area of interest, and then action specific systems in function of the threat. And this almost in real time. You have perhaps 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds to do that on a 1,500 kilometers front. So, at least for me, this came as really as a strategic surprise to have the Indians to have such an excellent system, locally developed system.
So you think that we did a fantastic job in managing the battlefield?
Absolutely, and
from a central command position, and that you think is a major leap forward.
Absolutely, absolutely, it is.
And let me tell you, friends, some of you obviously must have been glued to your TV all those 4 or 5 days, but many people believed that two nuclear powers would never cross the Rubicon. And this is the first time really in the history of the development of nuclear weapons where two nuclear weapon states actually decided that they were going to, at least from India's side, that we were going to cross that threshold. So this was a major, major leap of faith. And as Adrien says, the Indian political establishment showed that it had nerves of steel by completely entrusting and empowering the armed forces and giving them a free hand. So that is a major, major point of achievement which we should all recognize is a great development for us. But I also want to talk to you a little bit about the fact that despite having dominated this exchange with Pakistan, we lost the information war. What do you make of this?
I am of two minds. At first, of course, it is bad to lose the information war, and nowadays communication is a line of operation in itself. So it is true that the Pakistani were clearly better at that game. Although it sounds to me tactical because, okay, the Pakistani got at it better in, for example, in the Western mass media, but people are forgetting about 3 days what were the comments about Synindur. So is it so important on the strategic level for India? Whilst on the other hand, because the Pakistani won this communication war, this aspect of the war, they didn't lose face. And when you have an adversary which is not losing who is not losing face, then you will not reform. It will be less easier to improve itself. And so in the future it will be less as a threat in a sense, in terms of pure military capabilities.
So you're saying that they will become more complacent because they actually believe the propaganda and say, oh, we won the war, so we don't need to reform, we don't need to replace our military commanders that didn't do a good job, and that's actually good. So it's good to have lost the information war.
I would say it's always good to avoid to humiliate your adversary unnecessarily. So,
advantage, yeah. But still, this plays into our hands. In fact, we know that General Munir gave himself a promotion. He now goes by the title Field Marshal, and Trump says he's my favorite Field Marshal in the world. So maybe it is good that the Pakistanis are living in their world of illusion because they may not go for those next responses. But let's not also be so complacent. And I have to ask you, how do you think Pakistan will adapt now to life after Operation Synindur? What will the Pakistanis do to build themselves up so that they don't suffer like they have?
I would think that they will invest into long-range ammunitions of the same kind as India had already and deployed with such a great effect during Synindur. So they had some already, and they have some local development of cruise missiles, for example, but they will probably intensify their efforts. Tactically, I would expect them to hone their attack waves, mixing UAVs and rocket artillery and missiles, perhaps try to concentrate more on them on a single target rather than trying to strike several Indian air stations at the same time. At least it is what happened with the Russians in their long strike campaigns against Ukraine. They are improving all the time, finding new solutions, coordinating better, and they are far more efficient now than they used to be 2 or 3 years ago. So I would expect the Pakistani to have this learning curve, which means in turn that, of course, India has to continue to improve and refine this system. It is highly satisfactory, but it must be always improved to counter the enemy own evolutions. It is a never-ending game of adaptation and counter-adaptation.
Well, India has made, of course, a commitment in its budget. It's expanded its defense budget to try and now acquire the latest weapon systems and also fill the gaps that it might have actually spotted after Operation Synindur. Adrien Fontanellaz, thank you very much for speaking to us. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you for bringing perspective, rich perspective, to our audience here. Thank you, audience, for being patient. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.